We actually referred this particular case to the Department of Justice for a full criminal investigation. You had people within Governor Walz's office who were saying, you know what, this looks like fraud. It looks like these Somalian illegal immigrants are doing something that's very shady. And then you had people who shut them down. Clearly, people weren't taking fraud seriously. Whether it rises to the level of a criminal violation, we're going to investigate it. And of course, if it does rise to that level, we're going to prosecute it. We have to.
This is what accountability is going to look like, and things could get really bad for Tim Walz and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. So J.D. Vance, the vice president, receiving a letter from our next guest after his investigation, and the vice president sent that recommendation for possible charges directly to the attorney general at the Justice Department. Our next guest sending a letter to the VP saying that Tim Walz was warned multiple times that there was fraud happening in his state, but Tim Walz chose to keep the money flowing, allegedly. But that led to the loss of more than $300 million and $9 billion in Medicaid-related fraud. He looked the other way because he did not want to be seen as racist against the Minnesota Somali community. Think about what's happening here. This man could have been vice president a year and a half ago. Kentucky Congressman and Chairman of the Oversight Committee, James Comer, is here. Mr. Chairman, I want to talk about what happened today on Capitol Hill. But first of all, it seems like the vice president is taking this seriously. We contacted the Attorney General's office today. He said he could not comment on any of this because that's how seriously they are taking it. Right. Do you think this ends up with charges for Tim Walz and Keith Ellison?
I sure hope so. I mean, I think there's two problems Tim Walz has. First of all, the 9 government state employees in Minnesota who testified under oath that they repeatedly warned both Walz and Ellison, and time after time they rejected their complaints about fraud, and they turned a blind eye to it. But then they committed another, what I think is crime, Rob. They retaliated against those whistleblowers because they got mad because they were making such a fuss about the fraud. Those state employees did everything right. People wonder, how can anyone get away with this? Well, there's supposed to be checks and balances all along the system for government employees to detect this fraud, and they did. They did it in Minnesota time after time over a 6 or 7 year period, and every time they went to their superiors with concern about the fraud, they were told to stand down.
Can I just ask you?
And when they wouldn't stand down, yeah, go ahead.
Well, are you happy that it's Todd Blanche running the DOJ right now and not Pam Bondi? Because with Pam Bondi, this is not personal, but it just seemed like nothing ever got done.
Well, I'll say this, Rob, and Pam Bondi's a very nice person who's battling cancer, and we're all praying for her. But there's been a big difference in the Department of Justice since Todd Blanche has gotten the reins, and we're seeing people, attempted to be prosecuted. We're seeing indictments. We're seeing that in Minnesota. But I think it's Todd Blanche as well as Vice President Vance. Vice President Vance has taken control of this fraud task force.
Right.
And that's why we sent the letter to Vice President Vance. He immediately turned it into the Department of Justice and said, this is something that I think you should put at the top of the stack.
It feels like an indictment could be coming. That's how serious this is. And I think the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, I think he's well aware of this. Let me ask you about what happened with Bill Gates on Capitol Hill today. So the Oversight Committee had a hearing. This was all behind closed doors. Gates put out a statement. Oversight put out a statement. What'd you make of him? What'd you make of his demeanor? What did he tell you? Did you believe him?
He answered every question that we asked, and there were some very difficult questions that he was asked. There's the infamous email about the STDs and the extramarital affairs and all of that, and he answered every question. I appreciate that. He came in voluntarily because he had enough legal firepower. He probably could have delayed this for quite some time. So I appreciate him coming in, and again, he answered a lot of questions. We had a lot of questions about his relationship with Epstein, and he said the same thing every other powerful, rich individual has said, that they were manipulated by Epstein. They didn't know Epstein was involved in committing crimes with young girls. They thought that Epstein, this is the important thing with respect to Gates, and Bill Clinton said the same thing, and another individual that had a foundation said that they were contacted by people representing Epstein, and they were given the impression that Epstein was going to donate or help them raise money for their foundation.
Let me jump in.
And that's kind of how Epstein got in the door.
Okay, I just want to read this because I want to know if you believed him. Here's Bill Gates' statement, quote, "I never witnessed nor had any indication that Epstein was engaged in ongoing criminal conduct. Epstein claimed he could raise billions of dollars for global health." That's part of Bill Gates' opening statement. Do you believe this man, Bill Gates? Because, again, just my opinion, I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah. Well, he seems sincere. Now, what we're going to do is what I do with every person we depose and interview. We take it and we compare what they said. We asked a lot of questions. We asked hundreds and hundreds of questions by design. And we've got documents. We're going to compare his answers to the documents to see if we believe him. And we're also doing something else that I hadn't told anybody till today. We're taking those transcripts to the Epstein victims and showing them what they said and seeing if they dispute any of that and if they have evidence to dispute it. So we're double checking and triple checking everything he said.
Okay, are you done with Bill Gates for now?
For now, we're done with him. If we find that he said something that's disputable, we'll bring him back, or we'll call him for some clarification, because we're going to do that with some of the people that we've interviewed. But thus far, I don't see anything that Bill Gates said that we have any evidence that would prove otherwise.
And are you going to call Alan Dershowitz to testify?
Yes. He said that. There were some Epstein survivors that suggested we bring him in, and our witness, Ms. Groff, yesterday said we should interview Dershowitz. So we're going to do that, and it's up to him. The sooner the better. He has an open invitation to come in. He said he wants to come in, and we actually do have questions, and it always intended on him coming in at some point. So hopefully that'll happen in the next 30 days.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate you being with us. We covered a lot of ground. Keep us posted on what happens with Keith Ellison and Tim Waltz. That is the bouncing ball that I know people at home, they want accountability, and that's what it's all about. James Comer, thank you.
Absolutely.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.